Hey there everyone, welcome to a hopefully long-running series where I put a fair bit of capital into various builds, and before I get started on anything, I just wanted a quick disclaimer and say that I make really wacky builds. My philosophy for making a lot of these builds is not very meta, in the sense that it's not developed to be like super insane and uber tanky and all that stuff. I kind of just want to have fun and have a good time. I'm putting mirrors into builds that are literally not even close to being in the meta, like fucking Perforate for today. And so just kind of take everything with a grain of salt, as well as not all of the gear is going to be superb. In fact, a lot of the gear you'll see is going to be pretty shit because a fair portion of the money is going into specific pieces of it. So without further ado, let's get started. Today I have for you a Perforate / Cyclone Slayer. I understand Cyclone is pretty meta, but for the record, I figured 2 gem swaps plus an item swap is, really easy. I might as well get Cyclone in there too. So starting with the weapon, it is a really high PDPS exquisite blade. I think it's 1120 or 1130 or so. It's pretty fucking good. T1 across the board. It's just a good time. Took about a mirror to craft. The pain in the ass part really was the tempering orb part, but honestly, way better than what I had envisioned. Then we have a triple elevate chest. So crafting this chest is pretty easy for anybody who's curious about it. Just awaken orb the prefixes, either clean or figure out what the last prefix you want is. For me, I auged life, hit T2 life, or T1, T2 life, and then figured out the suffixes. So just aug crit, aug attack, prefixes can't be changed. Then maven orb, and if you hit the proper one, good. Otherwise, aug attack, and then maven orb again. Very easy chest to craft. Cool. Then let's talk about the headhunter. You do not need this kind of bougie headhunter. This headhunter, I figured this was the best one. All my other headhunters kind of didn't fit the bill for this build specifically. All my other headhunters were like crit chance during flask effect and then discipline aura effect or all res, and this build didn't really need any of that. So I figured this headhunter was the best for the build. Cool, now let's talk about the other gear, which you're gonna notice is pretty shit for the most part. The rings, really garbage. Slammed some essences on it, figured it would be fine. Garbage, for the most part. Slammed some essences on it, figured it'd be fine. The amulet is not even influenced. I ended up not going for an influenced amulet because I figured it would cost too much. Plus, since we're swapping between Cyclone and Perforate, plus strength, plus physical, would only apply to one of them. So, fuck it. It's not a huge deal. Then, we have the Abyssus. Really easy to get item, fucking dirt cheap, not perfectly rolled or anything. Has the Abyssus enchant for Perforate, and that's what kind of matters. And then the boots, really simple. Elusive Tailwind. If you don't have elusive on there and you have the Redeemer influence, aug crit, you're guaranteed elusive. Nothing elevated, nothing fancy, crafted life. So normally I would go for like a spiked gloves, but since we're more budget and we don't have curse on ring, I figured I might as well get a Hands of the High Templar. Give some life, it's a good time. Gave some attack speed, frenzy charges, vuln on hit. It's just a good time. So that's for the most part my gear. I'll talk about the Cyclone swap gear in a little bit down here after I explain everything else. So like I said, I went into this build with the concept of AOE, a fuckload of AOE, and that's basically it in mind. And so we definitely take the impact node on the Slayer tree. This gives so much fucking AoE, it's crazy when we're mapping, and when we're bossing, you don't particularly need too much AoE for that. And then we take the no reflect and 20% culling strike, as well as life leech. It's not quite over leech, but it's just a good time, having a bit of leech. In terms of the passive tree itself, very classic Slayer tree for physical builds. Let's talk about the notable things now that are on this tree. Notably the Watcher's Eye. This Watcher's Eye is really good if you can fit all 3. Like, that's a really good 3-stat Watchers, but I can't really imagine too many builds fit all 3. But I'm only using the second 2 stats. So Precision and Pride, it's just a pretty decent Watcher's Eye in general. I have an AoE Corrupted Akoya. This is for Chainbreaker for bossing. It's really insane. We have Intimidate on hit and double damage, strength, life regen, reduced crit. It's just a pretty good in general Akoya. In fact, it is extra insane if you dual wield because we have a double damage on this dual wield tree as well. So it's actually fucking pretty insane. So this would be a really expensive Akoya. I would recommend, like, you know, if you're trying to find an Akoya for yourself, this number is a pretty good number to work with for a dual wielding kind of setup. When it comes to clusters, everything is AoE. You'll notice AoE, AoE, just AoE across the board, AoE across the board, even more AoE there, just tons of AoE. We got like a Fuel to Fight, Martial Prowess, just to sustain mana and life, and it's just AoE across the board. And our AoE is fucking massive, like I said. Like, it goes definitely across the entire screen once you've killed some enemies. Our jewels are relatively budget, just double crit multi-jewels, crit chance jewels, some life jewels. I'm currently level 95, which means I have 5 extra points. I think I'm going to end up taking this jewel socket and then like Eagle Eye or Born to Fight. Alternatively, I could consider Swift Skewering, but for the most part, I haven't really figured out what I want to do. I may just end the build around 96, 97 once I grab this jewel socket. Cool. Now let's talk a bit about the gems and the Cyclone swap. So normally you want to be equipping Rizlatha's Coil. Rizlatha's Coil is so much fucking damage, it's not even funny. For the most part, this is better. I never swap off Headhunter because I think Headhunter is super convenient for mapping. It's super convenient for doing simulacrums or even bossing. Like it doesn't really matter. You just have so much damage in the build anyway that a Rizlatha's even more damage is like, alright, like, you know, it's kind of overkill since you're going for that kind of AoE anyway. The helm is really, really good. This one actually took a little bit of time to craft together. Just, you know, slap together Fizz damage, and then, slap together Conk Effect and power charges, then Aug Fizz, Aug Crit, and you're basically guaranteed that helm. Pretty easy to slap together, wasn't a big deal. But the important part here is the enchant. So, and then I just white socketed it so that I could fit the 3 white. The Cyclone AoE is really, really, really good on this build. I think, personally, might be the largest Cyclone I've seen. And so what you would do is you would just swap off Perforate, and you would swap off Infused Channeling, and then you have a huge Cyclone AoE. This is like half the size that it normally is. In the clips before, you probably noticed that it was significantly bigger because we were killing things and we got the Slayer tree kind of set up. So that's for the most part what the build looks like. Now for the gems themselves, on our Exquisite Blade we have our aura setup. So Flesh and Stone, Blood and Sand, Precision, whatever, all that fancy shit with Pride or whatever. There's no need for alt quality Pride, but I do like the alt quality Flesh and Stone because I like swapping between Blood and Sand to get a little bit more kind of oomph. In terms of our swaps, in our main link, we just have Awaken Fizz, Awaken Brutality, Fortify, and Impale. Those 4 links will never change, swapping between Cyclone and Infused Channeling, plus Multi-Strike and Perforate. That's all you have to do. In our helm setup, we have a Blood Magic support, linking to Totem and Leap Slam. The reason Blood Magic support is so fucking insane is you'll notice that no matter how much I Leap Slam, or how many totems I place while Leap Slamming, my health never goes down, because we have Golem's Blood down here for Regenerate Life, as well as this Regenerate Life node from Akoya. So we never ever have to realistically deal with that kind of issue. That's why this, I think, is, you might as well run a Lethal Pride somewhere in your build. Then, on our gem setup for our boots, we have the Blood Rage / Berserk setup with Enhance and Empower. You really won't be able to use Berserk on AoE clear, but also you never will realistically be able to need Berserk for AoE clear, so it's not a huge deal anyway. And then Blood Rage, keeping it permanently up, is something you can always do. But Berserk for bosses is a lot of DPS. It's about like almost double, probably like close to 70% increased total damage. It's pretty insane. On our gloves, we have a cast when damage taken Immortal Call setup with Summon Ice Golem. Now personally, about Summon Ice Golem, and especially for cast when damage taken, mine is level 16, which is very weird and wacky. It's like, why would you ever do that? And the truth is, I think it's interesting to, you know, have it at a higher level, because really when you'll be needing it is when you take big hits. I'm just trying it out. Maybe it's crazy good, maybe it's actual shit. but we don't even have that much life to support this kind of cast when damage taken setup. Anyway, it's cool. We're trying it out. Worst case, we just get a new one, right? It's not a huge deal. And then a portal linked to that. So that's basically how the build works. It is relatively expensive to slap together. I think I PC'd it about, in current market prices, everything together, only like a little more than 2 mirrors maybe. Especially if you count the headhunter, it's like 2.5, 3 mirrors. So it's pretty expensive, but the majority of the cost is in this blade, which is like a mirror or so, and as this astral plate, which is like, I don't know, like a couple hundred exalts. And as well as all the other fancy shit I have, like awakened gems and whatnot. You can probably make the build work on even less than that, probably like 400, 300 exalt budget, which I understand is still pretty high. You would just need to get slightly better rings and probably a better pair of gloves, along with a significantly worse exquisite blade. So that's basically it. That's the showcase, and I plan on making and trying out a bunch of builds for the future, and I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of content. If you want to see more, I'm always live on Twitch. I stream almost every day. Twitch.tv/CadenC. I'll definitely leave that in the description below, as well as maybe flash it on the screen here. And yeah, thank you for tuning into the content. I hope you enjoyed. Please leave any build suggestions in the comments that you want me to make. Have yourselves a great rest of your day.